Okay. All right. So we're not live, but Mr. Shem will be able to. Okay. Okay. So we're in the middle of the sugya of Aseder Chalosasei. Aseder Chalosasei, remember, is the idea you have a positive commandment bumping up against a negative commandment. And we had said that although generally a negative commandment is more strict because of the punishment that comes with it, the chiddush of Asei Dochelosasei, a positive pushing a negative, is that the Asei is the one we follow. Whatever the explanation is, different opinions. There's a Ramban, there's a famous machlekes between the Ramban, Avin and Yiro. There's a Rav Nissen going on Masechta Shabbos, big machlekes there. He has a different mahalach. Whatever it is, he's the one who famously says that in the place of the Lo Saseh, when it was given at Har Sinai, he says that it was only said in a scenario where there's no mitzvah, but when there's a mitzvah, the lav doesn't say. Either way, there's different mahalchim. We had gone through and finally come out and concluded, whichever way you twisted it, it came out from shatnas and tzitzis being juxtaposed, what's called smuchim, that we learn Aseder Chalosasei. The Gemara said wonderful. But where did we have the conversation of Aseder Chalosasei start from? The conversation started from the fact that we've mentioned that Yibum, the mitzvah of Yibum, is not to be done with an erva, and we needed a pasuk. The pasuk is Aleha. I'm going to be repeating that pasuk again and again today. The pasuk of Aleha is the pasuk we use to teach me you do not do Yibum with your brother, with your wife's sister, or any one of the other ervas. So I'm just going to, from now on, say erva. It means any one of the list in the Mishnah. So Aleha teaches me no Yibum with an erva, meaning besides the fact that she's your brother's wife, Yibum tells me you could do that, but it's not going to say that the additional erva is going to be mutter. So again, Yibum is docha the Eishes Ach, but it's not docha the other ervas. Where do I know that? The Gemara earlier said I need that from the pasuk. The pasuk is Aleha. The Gemara then said, it sounds like you would have thought, had I not had the pasuk of Aleha, that you would do the Yibum with such a woman. And the question is why? Meaning, isn't she someone who you're not allowed to be with? And not only that, but she's a lav sheish beikaris. So although normally, let's say like by shatnas and tzitzis, we would say, we never say that by alos say sheish beikaris. Where do you have you have to rely on some other place in the Torah where you see that the Torah expresses the idea. So at first, yesterday, we tried to say that maybe we'll learn out from a series of places by Shabbos. We pushed all of them off for various different reasons. That's yesterday's daf mitzvah chazra. But today, we're going to be picking up from where the Gemara left off yesterday, which was an attempt to say, maybe we'll learn it out from the fact that there's a brisa. The brisa says that, what if your father says to you, I want you to go make me a steak on Shabbos? On a Thursday, if your father says, go make me a steak, you got to make it exactly how he likes it. And if you don't make it exactly how he likes it, you're not being kind of the mitzvah. Keep it up. Keep it up, very serious mitzvah. The mitzvah say the Torah. What if he says to you, on the Thursday, go make me a steak? That's a mitzvah, you got to do it. But what if it's on a Shabbos morning? He says, you know what, I really like my chalent with a steak. I want you to make me a steak. Do you have to listen to him or not? So says the Brisa. You might have had a havamina. You might have thought, yeah, of course, it's a mitzvah. Keep it aveim. Says the Torah, no. Why? The pasuk says, Ish imay va'aviv siro. A person has to fear and love his parents, right? Or fear. And in the exact same pasuk it says, and he's got to keep the Shabbos. We understand that to mean Ani Hashem. The pasuk says, Kulchem chayom mechvodi, meaning to say that since your father is also mechuyev to listen to Hashem, and Hashem says keep Shabbos, and he has to keep Shabbos, so him asking you to go ahead and do an aveira that would be mekayim a mitzvah of kibbut aveim, says the Torah, you don't have to do that. But had you not had such a pasuk, you would have said, yeah, do it. Why? Maybe because I say is dochalosa say sheish beikaris. Because what is the Isser of Shabbos? If you do it b'mezid, yes, you chayiv skila. But if there's no edim there, you chayiv karis. That's a lav sheish beikaris. So you see from the Isser Shabbos that we would have pushed off for the mitzvah of kibbut aveim. You see, I say dochalosa say sheish beikaris. That's what the Gemara had said. Then the Gemara had said maybe not. Maybe when it says over there in the Brisa that I need a pasuk to tell me that you're not going to have to listen to your father, but you would have thought you do, maybe it's talking about not, he says, go make me a steak, which is a chiyav kares. Maybe it's on one of the other lavim on Shabbos. It's a lav, a losase in the Torah. The lav is a lav de mechamer. Mechamer is the halacha that you're not supposed to lead an animal on Shabbos. Leading an animal on Shabbos is asur min haTorah. It's a lav. It's a malacha. However, the lav of the mechamer is not a malacha that comes with kares. It's one unique malacha that does not come with kares. So, now why doesn't it come with kares? The Gemara explains in Shabbos, it's because you're only chayav kares for those things on Shabbos that you do with your guf, that you're doing on your own, with your own body. I cook, I'm cutting, I'm reaping, I'm threshing, I'm doing all these acts. But what am I doing already over here? I'm just leading the animal. The animal's the thing that's doing all the work. So in this scenario, although what's leading an animal is itself usher, And try to imagine, remember, all of the melachos of Shabbos are learned down from the Mishkan, and they would need an animal to carry stuff from here to there. I would need to be able to carry stuff from there to there.
What do you mean leading an animal?
Leading an animal. I'm holding a leash, and I'm
holding a leash. What if you're walking and an animal's following you?
If you're not causing it to do anything, it's nothing to do. But if you're causing it to move, then that's a problem. So, I mean, it's a discussion in Shabbos, and Mitzvah Shem, when we come back around in 6.5 years, we'll Lav the Mechamer. It's a real malach. However, you're not chayiv kares. Chayiv malchus maybe, but you're not chayiv kares. Meaning it's not a kares. So that means that the brisa that's telling me that I would have thought that you would have to listen to your father would makes a lot of sense. Because it's an asay being docha regular lav. Asay is docha los asay. And I need a special pasuk to teach me that it's not going to be listened to there, because otherwise I would have said asay docha los asay. Where would I know that from? Shanas and tzitzis. So therefore it's talking about lav the mechamer. Now I asked the Gemara 1 second. If it's talking about lav the mechamer, this is where we're picking up today. And we're going to see the following sort of pattern repeat itself twice in today's daf. And then we're going to come on to a different svara. Says the Gemara, afilu hachi loidachi. You're telling me it's talking about lav the mechamer, which means it's just a regular old asay doicha lois asay. So the Torah is now telling me not to do it. Why not say elo de kaim lo dasi asay v'dachi lois asay ligmer mehacha de loid loidachi? Meaning we spent a whole daf and a half trying to figure out where we learned that asay is doicha lois asay. We went from here, we went from there, we went from here, from there. It's aras, and we ended up coming around that everyone agrees that it's on some level learned from shadas and tzitzis. Why not just say that that's not correct? That rather, really, the way to learn it is that asay is not the docha los asay, and you learn it out from here. Because you see that a person whose father asks him to do a lav on Shabbos, that's not a kares, a regular lav, we say no. Meaning to say you have two drushes. The way the Rishonim speak this question out is, I have two possible drushes. I have a drusha that tells me to say asay docha los asay, and I have a drusha that tells me to say asay is not docha los asay. Both Sitzis tells me to be docha, and the one by Shabbos says to be not to be docha. So the way the Rishonim speak it out is, if you have a suffix, which way to go, you should go l'chumra. Which way should we darshan? We should darshan not to do the avera. Meaning, if it's a question of chomer and kal, it makes more sense to say don't do the lav, because the lav is more chomer. So says the Gemara, why not say from Shabbos this drasha? It should teach me that asay is not tochalos asay. Says the Gemara, v'chitema shani lav de Shabbos techmir. Maybe you'll say that la'olam in all cases asay is tochalos asay from shanas and tzitzis. Over here is a unique case because Shabbos is very chomer. And maybe over here you'll say that maybe dafke here asay is not tochalos asay because it's a Shabbos dik halacha and Shabbos is very chomer. Meaning la'olam Shabbos is chayiv kares. It is chayiv other things. It happens to be. You found one example on Shabbos that's not chayiv kares. You want to tell me that that's the malacha that we're going to learn out to kol Torah kula? Maybe it has unique elements of being stringent that it doesn't extrapolate to other places. V'hatana ba'al makoi. But we have a brisa where a Tana utilizes this exact same pasuk which we just taught to teach me that the halacha is that asay is not the by Shabbos, and we extrapolated from there to other areas that have nothing to do with Shabbos, meaning to say clearly the stringency of Shabbos isn't playing a role in what's going on over here. What's that case?
That Tana?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a good question. Not clear. But either way, the point is that you see clearly that whatever's going on in that pasuk is not limited to Shabbos. Why? The Tana has the brisa, and in this brisa, this Tana says, extrapolates the following halacha. The Tanya, the brisa says, Yachol Amar Lo Yovev Hitame. Let's say you have a person who's a kohen, and he has a son who's obviously a kohen. So the father says to his son, "Hey, I have an aveda. It's in a cemetery. I need you to go pick it up for me." So that means you're going to have to be over on becoming tamil. You're not allowed to go into a cemetery. You're not allowed to go be metamal mace. Your father tells you to go do that. This is mamish a case of kibbut aveim telling you to do an aveda. It's a lav. L'chayra, I would think you'd have to listen to him because I say the chelis to say. So says here, I might think Yochel Amar Lo Yovev Hitame, Oisha Amar Lo Al Taser, or if let's say, for instance, he's talking about a situation where somehow it's a benefit to the father for you not to return an aveda to someone, right? We know there's a halacha of hashavas aveda. You have a chiv to return a lost object to someone. So that means, and there's a lav, you are not allowed to avert your eyes. You have to, if you see something lost, return it to its owner. So if your father says to you, don't return it, he's asking you to be over on a lav. So he's your father asking you as a mitzvah essay to do something, and by listening to him, you're over on a lav. It's an assay and a lois assay. And this Tana says, Yochel, I might think you have to listen to your father. Yochel Yishmael, Talmud Leimer, Ish Imaiva Aviv Tiro, Veshavsosi Tishmaru. So this Tana clearly has no problem, meaning to say clearly we don't view the malacha of Shabbos here as any different than the other ones. And according to this Tana, let's say like the rabbi is saying, might hold assay is not Teichel assay, let's say. But the point is, he doesn't make a distinction between them. So you see, the pasuk is clearly talking about everything. So obviously, if this pasuk is talking about the lav of Shabbos of Mechamer, let this be a makar to call Torah Kula that asay is not the chilos asay, and you should have no argument not like that. So again, we're just very quick, just to make sure we understand. Asay is normally the chilos asay we learn from Shatnez, and here we have a pasuk that if it's true, is not talking about making a steak, which is a kares, but rather it's just talking about a lav that has no kares. Let this be a fountainhead to all other places in Shas of Aseis, not to Chalos Asei. Why go with Shanas as this is? Choose on this one and let's choose to darshan l'chumra, not l'kula. So the Gemara says, Ella must be a separate reason. And here, this next line in the Gemara is a big tumult in the Rishonim. Rashi has a very, very difficult pshat, Tosfos and all of the other Rishonim have, I think, a much more easy pshat. So we're going to say the easier pshat, which is going to make it a little bit difficult if you're an article guy, because if you're trying to review and read the inside the article, it may be challenging. So pay attention, and I'll explain the Rashi if we have a minute after. Yeah? Says the Gemara like this. Elam mishum de'ikal mifrach. There's two ways to go here. Is the Gemara coming and saying La'olam we're talking about mechamer, or is the Gemara saying La'olam we're talking about making a steak bishul? If we're saying we're talking about bishul, what the Gemara means to say in the end over here is that you're right. The pasuk is this is the way Rashi learns. The pasuk is talking about bishul. It is talking about a chiv kares. It's just that you can't extrapolate from there to yibum, because again, that's the reason why we're doing this. We're trying to figure out why would I have thought I needed a pasuk by aleha, because it's the migdocha los aseish by kares. So here we're going to say Shabbos is a los aseish by kares, and over here you see that I would have said you're doichet. So it says Rashi, the pshat in the Gemara is he says ma lahana shechein hechsher mitzvah. Hechsher mitzvah means since yibum you always have an alternative of chalitza. By having an alternative chalitza, we're not going to allow you to be over on the lav sheish beikaris. Maybe by Shabbos, if the father says to you, make a steak, there is no way to be mekayim the mitzvah of kibbut aveim, of making a steak without cooking a steak. Cooking a steak is absolutely usher. There is no derech away around that. So since you have no option, it's here hechsher mitzvah does not mean like the way it normally means hechsher mitzvah, like building a sukkah or something for the mitzvah of sukkah. Here hechsher mitzvah means it's required for the mitzvah. It's a hechsher mitzvah. You cannot be mekayim the mitzvah of kibbut aveim without it. The difficulties in Rashi are many. The fundamental difference is it comes out according to Rashi that really we hold out Seder Chelos Sheish Bakaras. It's just that we can't say it by Yibam. Meaning Yibam would be the only place you can't say it. Every other place, Kolot Kula, we would say that, and that's not the case. Meaning, as we go through the sugya, we'll see we don't say that. That's one major problem with Rashi. But there's a separate problem with Rashi. The other problem with Rashi is he's basically saying he's comparing Yibam and Kibbut Aveim. That Kibbut Aveim in this case you have no way around it. You must be Mekayim the mitzvah by doing the Aveira. Here, but Yibum, you can be Mekayim the mitzvah by doing something else. But that's not called Yibum. Meaning the mitzvah is Yibum. The mitzvah is do Yibum. Is there another way to do Yibum, not sex? No, not possible. You have to have sex. That is the mitzvah of Yibum. What are you going to say? I'm Mekayim my mitzvah is Yibum by doing Chalitza? That's not true. It's two separate things. The one mitzvah is do Yibum. The other mitzvah is do Chalitza. If you don't want to do this, you can do that. But that's not called a kiyum of Yibum. Unless you want to say they're both like what? A kiyum of your responsibility as a brother of a dead... It's very hard to say. This is a mitzvah yibum. How do you do yibum? There's only one way. The same way, how do you cook a steak? Only one way. Meaning you cook it this way, cook it that way, but you got to cook it. You're over on Shabbos. Same thing over here. So a lot of difficulties in Rashi that come up. It's more complicated. It's an Ian thing. So therefore, we're gonna veer off that pshat, and really we're gonna say a different pshat. And I think it's going to be a little bit easier to read the Gemara. Also, there's other problems with, again, we'll cover Rashi, but I'm saying there are other problems with Rashi's pshat in the Gemara as it reads. So Tosfos, this bottom big Tosfos over here, spells it out in detail, and many other Rishonim also have a similar way of saying it, and they say the following. What the Gemara means to say is, no, la'olam we're not talking about bishul. We're not talking about a chiv kares. La'olam we are talking about the lav de mechamer. Meaning we are saying that the case in the Brisa is talking about Shabbos, but it's only talking about Shabbos of a lav, not kares. So the question is, why don't we extrapolate from here to kol Torah kulo? Aseder Chelos Aseish is very simple, because it's a hechsher mitzvah, and the way he explains it is the lav de mechamer, when you're talking about kibbut aveim, what is it? Your father says, go make me a steak. So that is mamash him saying to you, go cook for me. What if he says, I'm hungry, go get me some food? Right? So there's a way to get it. You can get in the car and drive, and then you're breaking Shabbos, and it's kares. But you could also just lead an animal and take the animal wherever you're going to go. Leading the animal is never the tachlis of whatever is being asked of you. It's the mechanism you're using to get the item. You're going to put something on the animal, you're going to bring it this way, you're going to bring it that way. Think of it like the cart that you're going to be, just happens to be, it's a cart that has legs, right? So that's called the hechsher mitzvah, meaning to say hechsher mitzvah, it's never the final way that you're doing, not never, it's almost always never the way you're doing the final act. You're not fulfilling your father's wishes. Your father didn't say, go walk that animal for me. He said, go bring me some food, go get me something to eat. The only way to get it is to go to town and to take the animal to get there, to get the food and to bring it back.
Why can't you go in the next room and get him and get some food?
You're right.
Maybe he's thinking that. Why?
Correct. But you have a chiv to fill your father's wishes. Go get food. And let's say you're going to be mekayim it by going, or let's say you don't have any food. So if he says expressly, okay, go take the animal and go, maybe there's a conversation we can have. But generally speaking, lav the mechamer, this type of malacha on Shabbos generally isn't, like think of it in the Mishkan. We'll get to this in a minute as we go to the next Gemara. What did they use in the base of Mikdash? What did they use the animal for? Did it build anything? Did the Mishkan get built with the animal? Did the animal start knocking in nails? No. The animal was used to carry wood from here to there, to carry the supplies. It was like the cart that you would roll around with all the materials on it. So also over there, we'll see. Maybe we'll say over there also it's a hechsher mitzvah. I mean, that's what it means. So let's just review. What we really mean to say in the Gemara, this fixes a lot of problems. Now, la'olam, number one, we're coming out saying, I say is not techel because we don't have a raya to that. Because Mechamer is not talking about kares. And you get to sidestep all of the questions about Rashi's difficulties in Yibum, about whatever, all those other things.
Throughout that whole thing.
So what we're basically saying is the pasuk that says that you would have thought to be Docha Shabbos is saying it because why not? I say is Docha say, and the lav we're talking about is the lav of regular normal lav of Mechamer. We're leading an animal. So says the Gemara, I don't have a raya to Asay Docha Losesh by kares. But okay, so 1 second. The question now is, why can I not extrapolate from this case to learn out all of Torah Kula? Asay Docha Losesh is not true. Because here you see it's not true. You see Shabbos, you're not supposed to listen to your father when he tells you to do it. It says very simple. He says, Torah Kula, Asay Docha Losesh makes sense. Why? Because the Asay, the mitzvah, and the Los Asay are mamish bumping up against each other. There is no way to fulfill the Asay without doing the Los Asay. But over here, the lav is not really such a sharp... the nature of this lav is unique, because the way the lav is niskayim is not always doing the actual mitzvah, it's only the hechsher mitzvah. So maybe over here, because again, the lav mechamer isn't the fulfillment of what your father said to do. Your father said to go get me something to eat.
You can do it in a permitted way.
You can find another way to do it. It's only a hechsher mitzvah. Who says that an asay is going to be derech that? Right? Meaning that's not... Remember, asay derech asay literally means father asks you to do X, and X is aser. Now, you might say, Tosfos addresses this. What if your father says, I want you to go take the animal and go get me some food? He says, you're right. In that scenario, maybe you're right. But he says, since that's generally not the way that lav goes, asay is not going to be doicha that lav no matter which way you do it. But la'olam b'kol Torah kula asay is doicha asay. And it's very, very easy. It's very gleich. It's smooth. Because now we don't have any issues with yibum.
If asay is doicha asay, what do you need to issue over Yom Tov?
If I say is because it is specifically here you need it. Why? Because this is an asay being doch alav that isn't happening the exact way the asay is being niskayim. So I need a special pasuk to tell me that you would have thought.
You might have listened.
That you might have listened, because if I say doch alasay, but here not. But you don't have a makar from here to everywhere else.
What about the other problem of asay doch alasay and asay? At this point.
So that's in general akasha that I'm sort of avoiding over here. But yeah,
what?
Meaning there is an issue in general by Shabbos. Why don't we, the same way we asked before, let Nazir be a makar to asay being doicha lavin and asay, why not say over here, what was the havmina to say that it would be doicha? Meaning the same way we would say bring a raya to kares. So some want to say, and this is the way some Rishonim explain it, is that if, I haven't touched on something, but I'll touch on it quickly.
Maybe you shouldn't, because
No, I think we'll be okay. Just a quick idea. Some places over here we're saying that the final drasha becomes the source. And in some places we're saying what you would have thought before the drasha becomes the source. And it doesn't really seem to be consistent. Like on the one hand, we're going to say meaning, I'll ask you like this. When the Gemara asked, Asay derech losesh bekaris, who says so that you need a pasuk of aleha? I'll say, what do you mean? This is the drasha. Meaning, isn't every drasha by definition, you would have thought this, and now I have the pasuk to tell me not like that. It says the Gemara, why don't I need a drasha of aleha? Because I would have thought that if I didn't have the pasuk, you're going to be high to do the ibum. Yes, enechanami. Aleha teaches you. Asay is not doich losesh bekaris. Finished. Meaning, why wasn't that the makar? The answer is that. So the answer is that it all depends on what you would have thought without the Torah speaking. So if I have a pasuk, like you'll notice by sitzes and shatnas, if they wouldn't have been juxtaposed, I would have said asay is not doich los asay. The los asay is more chomer. I needed the Torah to tell me that. Once the Torah tells that to me, now I assume asay is doich los asay. But why should I assume it goes any beyond that? I can only assume that. That means if I have any other place where the Torah says, I need another pasuk to tell me even not beyond that, now I can assume, why do I even need that? What would I have thought? Are you telling me I would have thought something else? That's a raya. But in general, it's not that way. So your question is a good question, because why would I think that I need a pasuk to tell me by Shabbos that you're not docha Shabbos? Isn't Shabbos an asay and a lav? And that's a difficulty in our Gemara. I mean, I don't really have a good answer to that. The Rishonim address it, though. I don't have a good answer to it. But either way, so what is the Gemara coming out? The Gemara is coming out, at least at this point, it's saying you have no raya from kibbut ava'im being docha Shabbos, because even though Shabbos normally is a chiyav kares, according to the way we're learning, it's not here a kares. Or if you learn like Rashi, it is a kares, but it's a kares that doesn't get extended to yibum, because yibum you could do chalitza. But whichever way you go.
So the bottom line is, why do we need a leah for?
Still, we're constantly going to be coming back to why do you need a
That's the question we're dealing with.
Yeah. Says the Gemara, okay, fine. So you didn't like kibbut ava'im being docha Shabbos? Let's talk about Beis Hamikdash being docha Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Elasal kadaitach teisimi binyan Beis Hamikdash. I might think, meaning I needed Aleha to teach me that I would have thought I'll learn it out from binyan Beis Hamikdash. Meaning to say, now what's the assay by Beis Hamikdash? V'asu li migdash. V'shachanti b'seichem. Hashem says, build me a migdash. That's an assay. Listen to Hashem for that. Problem is that I might think that it's even on Shabbos. So taste me binyan Beis Hamikdash. The Tanya, the Brisa says Yochel Yehei binyan Beis Hamikdash doicha Shabbos. I might think that the building of the Beis Hamikdash occurred even on Shabbos, and that when we build the third bias, that it should happen on Shabbos. You might think such a thing. Talmud Loimar, a pasuk at the end of Kedoshim. The other pasuk was the beginning of Kedoshim. This is at the end. It says as Shabsoisi Tishmoiru Mikdashi Tiro Kulchem Chayavim B'Chvaydi. Same idea. You see that had the Torah not told me you can't do malacha on Shabbos when you're building the Beis Hamikdash, I would have thought you should. Why? Isn't Shabbos a kares? Says the Gemara, my lab b'boina b'saiser. This is just this version of make me a mistake. Now it's talking about a malacha min atayra of boina b'saiser, which comes with a chiyav kares. So my lab, that the halacha is that you are not supposed to do it when it's a kares. Why do I even need a pasuk to tell that to me? Right? V'tayim the kazav rachman eshab sois tishmoir. Halav hachi dachi. So what do you see? You see that I needed a pasuk to tell me not to do malacha on Shabbos when you're building the Beis Hamikdash. Well, why would I have thought you don't need that? I don't need a pasuk. It's a malacha that's a lav sheish bekaris, and I say it's not a lav sheish bekaris. How you see it is? So you see, had the Torah not told me don't build the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos, I would have thought you do, because I say it's a lav sheish bekaris, and let this be the reason why I need a pasuk by Aleha as well, by Yibum, because otherwise I would have thought you're going to do Yibum with your brothers, whatever, whichever it is. Yeah. So Gemara says lo, not a raya. The same way we pushed it off before and said it's not talking about a steak, but rather it's talking about lav de mechamer. Here we're going to say it's not talking about boina v'soiser. Rather, what is it talking about? Lav de mechamer. It's talking about lav de mechamer. We're talking about on Shabbos, and what we're saying, hey, good morning. What we're saying is that on Shabbos you are not allowed to build a Beis Hamikdash lav de mechamer, meaning everything else that's for sure. There's no havamina to do any of the other malachas because it's a lav sheish b'karas. Daf vav amud aleph. Like halfway down the middle of the first number.
6A1.
So says the Gemara, it's talking about lav de mechamer. Lav de mechamer again is a lav she'ein bo kares. Yeah, it's a lav she'ein bo kares. So since it's a lav she'ein bo kares, the pasuk that's telling me as shabsosa tishmoru and telling me not to break Shabbos is only telling me not to break Shabbos when it's not a kares. But la'olam, if it would have a chiyav kares, there's no discussion. Now you might say to me, well, why would I even think that you should do this one? Well, that's very obvious. It's an asay being doichelos asay, and asay is doichelos asay. Like we learned that from Shabbos and Tzitzis. Same pattern as we saw earlier. So says the Gemara, Vafilu hachi dachi. Same conversation. We're going to have a repeat. That's what I said. Vafilu hachi lo dachi. And no, sorry, maybe I misspoke. Yeah. Vafilu hachi lo dachi. You're telling me it's talking about asay being doicha lo asay, and here it's saying it's not docha. Shabbos is not. Sorry, yeah. We're not going to say that the mitzvah of building the Beis Hamikdash is docha Shabbos, even though it's just a regular lav. Then this that we learned. But from Shatnas and Tzitzis that an asay is docha los asay ligmer mehacha deloy dachi. Let's learn the opposite. That over here it's not docha. Meaning again, like we said earlier, if you have a choice between darshaning to say that the lav is going to become mutter, or you have a drush to say that the lav's not going to become mutter, go lechumra and say that it's aser, and say that asay is not docha los asay. And we know we don't do that. Maybe you'll say a very simple answer. Maybe we don't extrapolate from here to other places because of Shabbos, like we said earlier. Shani lavi the Shabbos de chamiri. Same exact answer. But what do you mean? I have another brisa where the brisa clearly does not make a distinction between Shabbos and Tumah and Hashavas Aveda. So in both cases, Yochel Ishmael, I might think you listen to him. This is just a mamish, a word-for-word repeat of what's happening up above. Meaning to say that in this case also, I'm stuck. If it's talking about Lav de Mechamer, I should be able to extrapolate here to Kol Torah Kula that I say is not Docha Los Asay. And we know that's not true. We learned a whole daf and a half of Gemara that says it is Docha. So clearly it must be talking about Bona V'Soser, which is a Chiyav Kares, which means we have our Makar for why I needed Aleha by Yibam, because had I not had Aleha, I would have said to do Yibam with the Erva, just like I would have said that you're supposed to build the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos, even if it's a Chiyav Kares.
If I didn't have the pasuk.
If I didn't have the pasuk, yeah. Of aleha, that would be the case. So now that I have aleha, I know don't do yibum with your, brothers, mothers, sisters, wives, cousins. Aleha is the pasuk that teaches me that yibum with an erva is asur.
Okay.
Why do I need it? Because if I wouldn't have had it, I would have said, do it. Why? It's an asay being doch alav sheish b'karas. Who says we do that? Right here. This is where it says we do it. It says over here that if I wouldn't have had the pasuk of kulchem chayim mechvoidi of shabsos dishmaru, I would have said build a base of Mikdash on Shabbos, even if it's bone of a soser. Bone of a soser is a karas. So what do you see? You see in both places. I'm not going to confuse you, but I have a question. If we finish the daf, I'll ask it. But when we finish the daf, I'll ask it. Okay. So as says the Gemara, Elo mishum dev ikul mifrach. Over here also it's the same answer. Maybe over here and here there's also machlokes Rashi and Taisus which way it goes. Elo ikul de mifrach ma lahanach shechein hechsher mitzvah. Meaning what? We'll go with Tosus because that's where we're learning the Gemara. We're only talking about mechamer. And ein echanami. You're right. I would have had a havamina that you're going to be docha mechamer because asay is docha losasay. Kamash malon over here that you aren't. Why? Not because asay is not docha losasay. Asay is always docha losasay. But asay is not docha this losasay. Why? Because mechamer is not the way you build a Beis HaMikdash. It's just a hechsher to build a Beis HaMikdash. It's not actually building a Beis HaMikdash. So who says an asay could be docha even that? Meaning, I'm going to let you on Shabbos build and with any one of the other 38 malachas. Why? Because those are all actually not building something. I'm going to let you also break Shabbos to carry the tools around. Who says you're allowed to do that? The building itself, you're allowed. But the hechsher stuff, who says you're allowed to do that? Therefore, the Torah is telling me you can't. But that's not a raya that in general you don't. In general, asay is dochalos asay. Let's say shatnez and tzitzis and mitzorah and all the other cases we learned. And therefore, I don't have a raya. So in the end of the day, right now, at this very moment, I have two separate Gemaras that have both taught me lav de mechamer is not docha Shabbos. Ask the Gemara, hechsher mitzvah tepik le mehasam. I need two separate psukim telling me that hechsher mitzvah is not going to be. All I need is one of these. The second one, lamali, I don't need it. Says the Gemara, you're right, we don't. Meaning to say, this second brisa, we don't hold la halacha. Rather, we take the pasuk as shabsois tishmoru mikdashi tiro to teach me something else. It's not at all talking about that. Now you might say, what do you mean? There's a Tana in that brisa who says that. So the Rishonim address the issue here of how do you ignore the fact that there's a brisa that learns this pasuk. But the point is the Gemara is saying it doesn't come out la halacha that we need that second brisa. That second brisa is shaloi halacha. It's not la halacha, and really the way that brisa is brought, we learned the pasuk for a different thing, right? The second pasuk is not available for you to teach. Meaning the suggestion of the Gemara is why have two brisas unless it's coming to tell me very similar to what we learned earlier. Im eino inyan lezeh. To know the inyan acher. I mean, the first brisa tells me lav de mechamer, which is a hechsher mitzvah. Why do I need a second time telling me hechsher mitzvah? Must be telling me even when it's not hechsher mitzvah. Meaning, and therefore it's going and saying that I say is not dochalos asay. Right? That would be the way you'd ask the question. So what the Gemara is saying is no, ein echanami, you're right. That second brisa and that second pasuk is not needed to teach me the hechsher mitzvah piece. Rather, it's coming to teach me the following halacha that, for one second, has nothing to do with asay derech halacha. We're about to spend the next 7-8 lines talking about something nothing to do with asay derech halacha. It's going to be telling me a halacha in how is one supposed to act when they go to the harabais.
Are we allowed to ask a question?
Of course.
Why do you need a pasuk to tell me that a asay is not shvach halav?
It's not a shvach halav.
Lav mechamer?
It's not that the reason why it's not working isn't because it's a shvach halav, adarab. It's because the lav isn't something that is needed for the actual kiyum of the mitzvah.
Is that a shvach halav?
No, adarab. It's if anything, it makes it. It's not. The reason why the asay is not docha losa here isn't because it's not strong enough. It's certainly strong enough. If it's going to be docha. A regular lav, it should be docha this lav. This lav is no more chamer. It's just that the nature of the way this lav of mechamer is being done isn't the kiyum of the mitzvah in its most ideal form.
If you need a pasuk,
right? Meaning it would be like the equivalent just to make. Let's just use an almost exaggerated example. If your father says to you, "I need you to go, go get me a book,"
you can do it.
And the book's upstairs, but I decide to jump in my car and go to the library. I don't get to say, "Well, my father said go get him a book." Right? Meaning that's what lav de mechamer is. So says the Gemara, lav de mechamer, you don't have a right just because the Torah says. Now you might think maybe even there, yeah, why? Because you know what? Well, I say is the halos. I say I might even think there. No, that's not. Why? Because not because it's a weaker lav. It's if you get in the car and do it, it's absolutely 100%. Not the car. I'm saying if you carry, you lead the animal, it's a lav. It's 100%, no questions asked. It's a real lav. It's just that it's not needed to be mekayim the mitzvah. Now,
and all the options.
Exactly. And the same thing by the Beis HaMikdash, by the way. For a moment, the Gemara had a havamina that you can expand the conversation to talking about the Beis HaMikdash also. Maybe Hechsher Mitzvah is only when your father asks you. Beis HaMikdash is also, Beis HaMikdash is also called Hechsher Mitzvah. When you're doing a Lav Mechamer, what are you really doing? It's a supporting Aveira. It's not really the primary thing. A building, it's not the primary thing of listening to your dad. So the Gemara says, if I don't need the second drasha for Hechsher Mitzvah, because I already have the first one, I let this be a Makar to Asay not being Dochalos. Says the Gemara, Einachanam, you're right. If all we did was have these two brises, and the both psukim were needed to teach me that the Hechsher Mitzvah is not going to be Docha, we would extrapolate from here to Kol Torah Kula that I say is not Dochalos, I say. But Einachanami, we're going to say that because we're going to say that the second brisa, which learned the pasuk to be talking about Hechsher Mitzvah, is really, we understand it to be talking about something else. Elisa says the Gemara, if that's true, then okay, you're saying I don't really need that pasuk to teach me Hechsher Mitzvah, that it's not going to be Docha, let's say Lav the Mechamer. So what is it for? Look at the Tanya. It's learning the following halacha that has nothing to do with Asay Dechel. Says the Gemara, Yachol Yisyarei Adami Mikdash. I might think that when I go to Harabayas, not only do I have to treat the place with respect, but I might think that I have to serve and bow to the Beis HaMikdash itself. I might think such a thing because it says Mikdashi Tirou. I have to fear the Mikdash itself, meaning to say that I bow to it. I might think you have such a Havamina, similar to the way when a Rav walks into the room, there's a musig of showing deference, whatever. You might think that just like Hashem says, fear me, fear my Mikdash, fear my Talmud, fear my Talmidei Chachamim, fear my fathers, fear my mothers. There's a concept of bowing, prostrating oneself and showing deference to someone who is, let's say, a chashuv thing, an important thing. You might have such a havamina. Talmud loimer, no. Es shabsoishe tishmoru ves mikdashi tiro. Says the Gemara. What's the drasha? Like this. Ne'emra shmira b'Shabbos. What does it say? Shabsoso tishmoru. It says shmira b'Shabbos. V'ne'emra mora b'mikdash, and it says mikdashi tiro. That's talking about fear. And we make a hekesh. We assume what it means when it says shmira, it means when it says yira. Like this. Ma shmira ha'mura b'Shabbos. When Hashem says keep Shabbos, what does he mean? Loimi Shabbos atam misyar. You're not keeping the Shabbos because Shabbos is telling you to keep it. It's Hashem who's telling you to keep it. So therefore, in the end of the day, the way you show respect and shomer Shabbos is by shomer the Shabbos that Hashem said for you to keep. So too, Elomi Misha Hizir ala Shabbos, meaning Kodesh Baruch Hu. Af Moira Hamura b'Mikdash. So too, the fear of the Mikdash does not mean the fear of the actual building, but rather Loimi Mikdash atam misyar Elomi Misha Hizir ala Mikdash, rather upon Hashem, and meaning to say the way you act with respect in the Beis HaMikdash is a reflection only of Hashem's covet. And what does that therefore mean? Vezohi Moira Mikdash. What is it? What is the way that one is mekayim the mitzvah of showing Moira b'Mikdash? Various different things. Lo yikonas adam b'harabayis b'maklai. Don't go up there with your stick. B'minolo. Don't wear your shoes on the harabayis. B'pundasai. Don't wear your fanny pack with all your money in it. It's not a tourist attraction. B'avik shal gabi raglut. Make sure your feet are clean. Don't use that area as a shortcut to get to somewhere else. Have respect for the place. V'rekika, also don't spit mikal v'chomer. That's also different. Gemara in other places mentions different kal v'chomers. But really, v'rekika is a disgusting thing. You shouldn't spit on the ground near the harabayas. Ve'ein li'ela b'zman she'beis hamikdash kayim. I know this only from here in the pasuk talking about when the Beis Hamikdash is there. And again, this Gemara would be going according to the Manda Amr, who holds Kidshel Ashata, Kidshel Asid Lava, which is a concept in many places in Shas. We saw it, I think, in Tainus or Megillah, that discussed when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, did the holiness of the land leave or did it stay? That's a big machlekes. This Gemara is clearly going with the opinion that says that it remained.
And second bias.
And well, that's also discussion. Second bias, I'm saying, but
Where the first bias didn't say.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Ve'ein li'ela b'zman she'beis hamikdash kayim, b'zman she'ein beis hamikdash kayim mina. And what about even when the Beis Hamikdash is not around anymore? Talmud loymar, this pasuk, as shabsoisei tishmoru mikdashi tiro mashmira ha'amura b'Shabbos la'olam. Right? Shabbos is not a temporary mitzvah; it's forever. So too afmora ha'amura b'mikdash la'olam. But loyla, we don't have any makar for asay being deicha loysa sheish beikares that I need a pasuk in Yibum to tell me don't do it. Why would I have thought you have to do Yibum with your erva, that she falls to you as an erva, beyond the Eshesach, the other erva? Why would I think you have to do it? Because an asay is deicha loysa sheish beikares. Where? Not from Shabbos. Both cases. And the pasuk, the one place you did have a place, that's talking about Lav the Mechamer. It's not talking about, at least the way Tosfos learns. Rashi comes out, there would be a Makar for Asay Dechel Eshesh Bekaros, but limited to Shabbos and other areas, not to Yibum. Yeah?
It tastes man.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the reason why I mention it is because if someone's going to spend time at 9 at the art scroll, and it's going to be like confusing, that
Rashi?
I don't know, but I assume they generally do. They generally,
easier.
Yeah. It's generally usually Rashi, but sometimes when Rashi is difficult, they feel an obligation to try to explain him, and I think they contort themselves sometimes. Don't get me wrong, it would be great to explain Rashi. I'm sure Rashi has a great understanding. But either way. Ella salkadaita tasting mehavara. We're gonna have a new makar. So take a deep breath. If anything until now was a little bit like I'm not 100% sure on this mechamer business, we're going to another place to find the makar, find the source for where I see in the Torah that asay is not. Sorry, that an asay is docha elos asay sheish beikaris, meaning I'm gonna go look for another place where the Torah had to explicitly tell me don't do something that had the Torah not told me I would have said do it, even though it's an asay being docha lav sheish
That's why you need a
beikaris.
leha.
What's that?
And that's why you need a leha.
And that's why I need a leha to teach me the same thing by Yibam. So says the Gemara, so just a couple of things outside. On Shabbos, you're not allowed to do any one of the 39 malachas, right? One of the malachas on Shabbos is havara. Havara is kindling, lighting a fire. So, like on Yontif, we have people say, oh, you're allowed to smoke on Yontif because it's ochel nefesh. You are, let's say. But you can't light the lighter. You have to take it from the pre-existing flame because havara is not mutter on Yontif. What is havara? Havara is creating a new, right. Now, all of the 39 malachas are not mentioned explicitly in the Torah. Most of them, in fact, are understood from a special drush in Shabbos that we learn out from Mishkan. That this was a malacha, that's a malacha. Why did the Torah explicitly tell me lo sevaru? Why specifically tell me that? So that is a machlokas. We'll see in the Gemara, but I want to say it outside to understand it. There's two opinions as to why it did that. So there's two opinions. There's an opinion of Rabbi Yossi and there's an opinion of Rabbi Nosson. Rabbi Yossi has a very interesting shita, and you'll see why it's relevant for our Gemara in a moment. Is he holds that why did the Torah tell me lo sevaru eish specifically? Lakula, to tell me that there's no kares.
Only a lav.
It's the only one of the malachas, well, I guess besides Mechamer, that doesn't have a kares. When you do it, it's just a regular lav. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion.
What are you high?
If you do it on purpose, you're
Malchus.
malchus. We whip you.
Strange halacha.
Interesting halacha. Meaning, we said earlier that Mechamer makes sense because you're not doing it with your own body. Here you are.
It's not one of the 30 halachas.
I know, but I'm saying it's a lav on Shabbos that you should be chayiv skila. You're not chayiv skila. You're not chayiv kares. Because it's not
I
something
could
you
do that one. That's it.
Yeah, if you want to go to hell, yeah.
You
Sure.
want to get through
Malchus.
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 Yeah, you
Just
think you could take 39 whips? No, I don't think.
Is it 39?
Yeah. Well, not always.
Besides, you made Hashem unhappy. Besides, you did an Avera. You did an Avera.
That's what Shalom.
Chas v'shalom. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So says the Gemara like this. That's Rabbi Yossi. There's a Reb Nosson and he says, no, of course you chayiv kares when you do lo sevaru. Why is lo sevaru written? There's different opinions as to how to explain it, but he basically says it's coming to teach you that if all I would have is the pasuk of lo saseh kol malacha, don't do all of the malacha, I might actually have a havamina that when are you a chayiv achatas? When are you chayiv kares? When are you chayiv misa for all these things? If you do all 39 malachas. If you do all 39, lo saseh kol malacha. You have to do all 39. Another opinion says lo saseh kol malacha means I might think of, let's say I sit down and I'm cooking and I do one whole act that contains 4 different malachas, which is very possible. Maybe I'm lighting a cigarette while I'm walking out from one rishus to another. I'm ashing. I'm fertilizing the ground. I'm knocking out malachas all around. And someone says to me, "Don't do that." So you might have a havamina that it's all one act. You only chayiv one chatas. No, that's a chatas. That's a chatas. That's a chatas. That's a chatas. You have issues. Every one of them is a separate malacha. If all I would have is lo yisasa kol malacha, I might think no, that's all one thing. Says Rav Nosson lechalak, it's coming to teach you that it's irrelevant for our sake what Rav Nosson's pshat is. For our sake, the fact that matters here is Rav Nosson holds it's a chiv kares by Yisavaru, and Rabbi Yossi holds it's no chiv kares. That's the part that's going to be matters to us, because we're going to say that if this is Rabbi Yossi who says there's no kares, okay, it's fine. But if it's Rav Nosson that it is a chiv kares, then I have a makar. Meaning we'll see what the makar is in a second. But it's important to establish which of the tanoim is it talking about a lav of lo sevaru that kindling is a kares or kindling is not a kares. So says the Gemara as follows. Oh, there's another halacha it's important to understand. When someone does something that is chayiv misa, so Bezdin has a mitzvah to carry out the punishment. We'll see it many times throughout the Seder Mishpatim. In the Psukim it says, humos, humos.
Even on Shabbos?
Oh, that's the discussion on Gemara. Do we say that you have the mitzvah of listening to Hashem, of killing this Rotzeach, or killing this person who broke Shabbos, or killing the person who slept with his brother's, sister's, wife's, uncle's, whatever. Someone who's chayiv misa. Do we carry out the punishments on Shabbos?
That means Bezdin sits on Shabbos.
Bezdin sits on Shabbos, let's just say, and let's assume for a moment that we're going to say that we're going to carry it out on Shabbos. Now, besides even the issue of netilas neshama, which is its own issue, sreifa, which is one of the 4 ways to kill someone. Now, sreifa doesn't actually mean a fire. People don't understand this. The word sreifa does mean burning, but rather, if you really want to get your head wrapped around in a circle, the way sreifa was done is they would take hot molten lead, They would heat it up so much so that it would gurgle over. They would pour it down your throat. It would burn your insides. That was what Sreifa was. If you're ever unsure if you should sleep with your sister, just know, or your daughter, or whatever. Not your daughter. If you sleep with your daughter, or your mother-in-law, And where's the Makar in the Torah that we do Sreifa? Mother-in-laws. Mother-in-laws is where we know. Don't sleep with your mother-in-law. That's the one where it says by the pasuk over there, don't do it, you're going to get Sreifa. Sreifa is a very serious one. It's not the most serious. Reb Shimon holds it's the most serious, but generally skila is considered the worst. Toss you over a cliff, throw a bunch of boulders down on you. I don't know which one's worse, but it seems like they're both not so great.
I like love and happiness.
Love and happiness. This is a very Yismach. Okay, so says the Gemara like this. The Torah says, Bezdin, you got to go kill this guy. It's a mitzvah. The Torah also says, you can't break Shabbos. What if a guy's chayiv sreifa? Can I now go and light the coals, get the thing going? So on the one hand, if you say, I would say, yeah. So if the Torah tells me, don't do it, it must be the Torah said, had it not told that to me, you could do it. I say, that's the Gemara. Let's do it. Says the Gemara, the Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. It shows up a lot over here in the beginning.
I was going to say,
yeah. The Torah says, don't burn a fire in all your dwellings. Ma Talmud Loimer. What is it coming to teach you? It says to me, what do you mean Ma Talmud Loimer? Ma Talmud Loimer? Ma Talmud Loimer, the Gemara, we learned this with the Gemara I just said outside. Ma Talmud Loimer, Ila Rabbi Yosi Lalav and Ila Reb Nosson L'chalak. It's either telling me like Rabbi Yosi that it's only a lav, not chayiv kares, or it's like Reb Nosson that it is chayiv kares, and rather it's telling me something else about maybe you need to do all 39 malachas in order to be over. That's why I need it. That's why the Torah is specifically there. That's a massive machlekes in Shabbos. It says in the Gemara, the Tanya, Havar Lalav Yatsa Div Rabbi Yosi Reb Nosson Amar L'chalak. Amar Rava, this vav here doesn't really need to be there. It's Amar Rava. Rava explains, no. What Rabbi Shmuel was saying when he said, or Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, when he said, Ma Talmud Loimar, he didn't mean the fact that the Torah explicitly mentions Lo Sevaro. That we have a good answer for. He was bothered by the words Bechol Moshvos Seichem. Tana Moshvos Kakashale. He was bothered by that additional component there. Bechol Moshvos Seichem implies that geography plays a role in whether the Isser is true or not. But we know that Shabbos is also no matter where you are on the earth. Who cares where you are? Bechol moshvos seichem in all your dwelling places. Moshvos ma Talmud lomar michti Shabbos chovas hagufi. Shabbos is an isser that you have. It's a bodily isser. It's no matter where you're standing. The chovas haguf no heges bein baretz bein chutz laaretz. What are you going to say that it's only in Eretz Yisrael, not in chutz laaretz? Geography matters. Bechol moshvos seichem implies it's only here but not there. So that can't be what it means. So therefore, it seems to be out of place. What's the words bechol moshvos seichem? Moshvos the kozem rachmana b'Shabbos lamali. It doesn't make sense. So on that, Rabbi Shmuel then continues and says, Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, Amar Talmud Echad, one of his Talmidim said the following explanation of what Bechol Moshvos Seichem means. And you can already see where the Gemara is going to go with this. Lefish and Nemar, the Pasuk says, that when you have someone who's done an Aveira that is Chayiv Misa, let's make it easy, we'll say, he slept with his mother-in-law, he's Chayiv Sreifa, and now you found out that he's Chayiv Sreifa. The pasuk says, "V'humas," you have to kill him. There's a mitzvah for Bezdin to fulfill their responsibilities and giving him sreifa. Shemeya, and I might think bein b'chol bein b'Shabbos that this is true, whether it's on a Thursday or even if it's on Shabbos, meaning to say that you could do the sreifa even on Shabbos. In which case, what? Asay is being deichel, right? So just realize what we're saying here. Umani mekayim, and if that would be the understanding, what would then be the pshat? By Shabbos in general, we say Mechaloleh Hamos Yumas, that the person who breaks Shabbos is Chayiv Misa, is Bishar Melachos Chutz Mimisas Bezdin, is talking about all other cases except this case. Why? Because this case is unique. What's unique? It's a mitzvah. This specific mitzvah of Misas Bezdin is Docha the Lav Sheish Beikaris of Shabbos.
So what's the kasha?
So far, we're not at the kasha.
No, what's the kasha? Mos Yumas.
It's not the Mechalel Mos Yumas isn't the kasha. It's just he's trying to explain what would I say the pshat of Mechalel Mos Yumas is in general by Shabbos. By Shabbos, Mechaleleh Mos Yumas, we say you kill. Meaning, you might think that Mechaleleh Mos Yumas tells us that Bezdin shouldn't listen. Right? He's trying to point out that I have the two things running up against each other. On the one hand, I have Mechaleleh Mos Yumas, which means you're not allowed to break Shabbos, and if you do, you're Chayiv Misa. On the other hand, I have a mitzvah that says you have to give out Sreifa to someone who's Chayiv Sreifa in the Beis HaMikdash, not in Bezdin. So which one should I listen to? So he says, so he suggests we should listen to the mitzvah. The Asay let it be docha the los sheish beikaros of Shabbos. And how will I then explain what it means when it says Mechalaleha Mos Yumas on Shabbos? It just means not this, meaning this mitzvah you're allowed to do. Maybe he says he's back and forth. Maybe it's not true. Maybe we could say the other way. We're not docha. Ela afilu Mrs. Bezdin. Maybe it means even Mrs. Bezdin. Meaning to say that we're not going to be docha the lav sheish beikaros. Meaning Rabbi Shmuel's Talmud is going back and forth. Do we say we're going to be docha? Do we say we're not? Umani mekayim b'humas. And if we say that that's true, that we're talking about that even Mrs. Bezdin is also on Shabbos, V'chumas, when it says in the pasuk, by doing sreifa, is b'chol b'loi b'Shabbos. So that's one way to learn, right? He's saying, Eina ela afilu b'Shabbos. Right? So meaning, it's a very elongated way of saying outside the following chakir. He's like, I'm not sure. Should I say bitoch Shabbos? Or should I not say bitoch Shabbos? Now, if I say bitoch Shabbos, I obviously have to re-explain the words mechalaleho mos yumas to mean not including when you're meting out punishment and bezdin. And if I say you're not going to be docha Shabbos, I obviously have to re-explain the pasuk that says you always mete out the punishment to be referring to only during the week and not on Shabbos. But that's just complicating the matter. Really, what he's effectively misupik about over here is: do we say the assay of sreifa is going to be docha the lav of Shabbos?
If you say that that it is docha Shabbos,
Yeah.
Machlem makes you must is talking about Min Shemayim.
No, mechalamos yumas will just mean all other malachos, meaning not this case. Meaning the Torah says
Put him to death.
no, mechalamos yumas here is talking about Shabbos.
I know, but if you're saying Chiyeh Be'ish Chet Mishma Mos Rumas, telling us that you're going to put somebody
Even
to
on
death,
Shabbos,
so what's Machlem Mos Yumas teaching us?
all the other malachos you got to kill. Meaning mechalamos yumas is going on all malachos. The pasuk of mechalaleha mos yumas is going on all the 39 malachos. If you break them, you chayv misa. Now,
You can't learn it from the first one. Chiyeh Chet Mishma Rumas.
but that's talking about specifically Mises Bezdin. That has nothing to do with Shabbos. The humas of that pasuk is talking about. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're on the same page here, because it could be it could be crossed up. The pasuk of the humas is talking about
Not on Shabbos?
yeah. If you have something you need to do on your phone, you can do it
It's not on Shabbos?
away from the table.
Not on Shabbos?
What?
It's not on Shabbos?
Not on Shabbos. No.
Really?
Well, that's the chiddush. The question is, can it be done? I'm just saying, if I was giving a speech and you were sitting in front of this, it's just hard for me to pay attention.
You're right.
Yeah,
I love you. Well, tunnel love.
You're right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's clarify. What are we saying? We're saying like this. Says the Torah, you have to give a person sreifa his chayv misa, and at the same time, the Torah says keep Shabbos. So those two things run up against each other. So does that mean I give sreifa even on Shabbos, or does that mean I give sreifa only during the week? Well, depending upon which way you learn, you'll have to reinterpret the psukim. Right? If it means only do it during the week, then obviously when the Torah says you give out sreifa, it means only during the week. And if it means even do it on Shabbos, that must mean that when it says in general, don't do Shabbos, don't break Shabbos, and if you do Yechayv Misa, that means obviously only if you're not giving out a sreifa. But if you're giving out a sreifa, that's no problem, because that's mutter. Why? Because I say it's now, we're making the assumption that we're talking about sreifa, and sreifa is chayv kares. But remember, we said earlier, there's two opinions. One opinion says it is, one opinion says it's not. Rabbi Yossi says you're not chayv kares for sreifa, whereas according to Rav Nosson, you are. So says the Gemara, if we're talking about af moshvos amuras kam bebet, so says the Gemara, let's just read it inside. Sorry. Oyena ela afilo b'Shabbos. Talmud loymar leisivar reish b'chol moshvei seichem, and moshvei seichem we said before is extra. What does that come in to teach me? It says like this. It says ulahalan by the case of a ritzech, also over there in the same parsha. It talks about a ritzech that we're going to be giving misa for. Use the word moshvos seichem over there. We have exer shava. Ma moshvos hamurim lahalan by the case of a ritzech is referring to bebezdin.
That's a murder, right?
Murder. Correct. Yes. Sorry. Af moshvos hamurim kan is bebezdin. So we understand over here that now we're to interpret that when it says lo sevaru eish b'chol moshvos seichem, it's specifically referring to the sreifa of the bezdin. And that sreifa shall not be done. Why should it not be done? Because v'avrachmana lo sevaru. Now, in order to say the next line, we have to establish that the lo sevaru is talking like Rib Nosson. Why? Because Rib Nosson, he holds that it's chayv kares. My lav Rib Nosson he, the amar lechalak yatsa, meaning to say you're chayv kares. In which case, then, if you put all the math together here, if Rib Nosson is the Tana of the Brisa, and Rib Nosson holds you chayv kares, that means lo sevaru is a chayv kares. And the Torah is telling me, don't do lo sevaru. Why? Meaning, don't do kindling. Don't make sreifa happen. Why? Because the Torah needed to tell it to me, because had it not told it to me, I would have thought, you do it. Then I have an asay, the asay of listening to Hashem Bezdin putting out a sreifa. That asay is docha the lav of Shabbos, of sevaru, which is a chiyuv kares. And now I have a makar for asay docha lo shesh bekares, that I can now say, I need a pasuk of aleha by yibum to teach me that you don't do yibum. You want to repeat it? I don't mind. We have a couple of minutes. Yeah, okay. So like this. Remember, Aleha, the pasuk by Yibum, is telling me don't do Yibum with your erva. Why would I have thought you do Yibum with your erva? Your erva is a chi of kares. We don't say Asay is docha lav sheish by kares. So our Gemara has basically been trekking around Shas to figure out where can I find a place that I say is dochalos shesh bekaris, or at least I see that the Torah clearly thinks it is. So now we're holding by a case where it says like this: Lo sevaru eish, don't burn on fire on Shabbos. That is a malacha that is a machlokus whether it's yesh bekaris. Yeah. So if I can establish that it's according to the opinion that holds it as chiyuv karis, and I find a place where the Torah tells me that I don't want you burning on Shabbos something, it must mean that had the Torah not told that to me, I would have thought you do burn on Shabbos. Why would you burn on Shabbos if it's a chiyuv karis? Must be because the assay of whatever the mitzvah is discussing, in this case, Bezdin giving sreifa to a person who killed someone or whatever it is, that's docha the lav of Shabbos. Simple. But in order for it to work, the lav we're discussing of fire has to be a karis, right? Because if it's not a karis, then it's no different than what we said before about lav the mechamer or similar thing. It's just a regular lav. So says the Gemara, if we establish that it is Reb Nosson, then we have a good raya. The time of the cause of Rachman Eloi Sevaru, halav hachi dachi. So the Gemara says lo. Same answer like we said before. Lo, it's something else. It's lav the mechamer, lav to this. Lo, it's the Reb Yossi. So now says the Gemara 1 second. So if it's talking about Reb Yossi, so now what are we saying? We're saying the asay is docha the los asay. We would have thought they do. Kamashmal and the Torah is telling me that they don't do it on Shabbos. I mean, that's effectively what we'd be saying. Lo sevaru, don't do it. So it says the Gemara 1 second. It's still a raya. Why? But to have a nami Reb Yossi, you can even say it's Reb Yossi, and there's no chiyuv karis. But isn't the act of sreifa, burning the lead oil, isn't that cooking also? You're right. Lo sevaru eish is telling me don't give sreifa to someone. Why? Because you're being over on an avera. Which avera? We just established that like Rav Yossi, it's only a regular lav. But how does one perform sreifa? You put a bunch of molten lead in a pot and you burn it. Well, isn't that cooking? That's bishul. Bishul is a kares, according to everybody.
Maybe not the Savara, but bishul.
Yeah, so the lighting of the fire might be only a chayiv malchus, let's say. But what are you doing? You're practically, says the Gemara, Eimer dam Reb Yossi havara lalav yatsa havara gredasa. He only said you're not going to be chayiv kares, right? When it's all you're doing is lighting. Havara de bezdin is bishul psilahu. You're burning the oil. You're burning the lead. You're creating the hot molten lead to pour down the guy's throat, and that is clearly a kares. And yet the Torah is telling you don't do that. Why? Because I would have thought you can do it. Why? Because I say is derech lav sheish by kares. Even according to the opinion that says that havara is not a kares, because bishul everyone agrees is a kares. Simplifies it. Right? Really, it would have been nicer if the Gemara just didn't tell me about Reb Nosson and Reb Yossi at all, and just simply say, when it says lo sevara, what does it mean? It's talking about bezdin burning, and burning is bishul. Why not just do that? It would have been a lot easier for Daf Yomi guys, but that's effectively what the Gemara is holding right now, and if we stop the Gemara right now, we would have a Makar, and we would be done, we could go back to Yevamos. The Gemara says no. First Rav Sheshes explains, you might think maybe the bishul of lead is not the same thing, maybe bishul only applies to food. Says Rav Sheshes, Mali bishul psila, Mali bishul samanim, meaning bishul expands beyond food. Bishul goes even to, like for instance, just that means if let's say a person, came in from the rain on Shabbos and now his suit jacket is all wet and he wants to maybe put it on the radiator to let the heat from the radiator dehydrate his jacket so it doesn't get ruined. Could be problems of bishul because the water that's inside there, or even or if let's say it's very hard, you want to soften something up, that already is also bishul. You always be careful, even if it's not for food, bishul on Shabbos. But the point is, as it relates to us, we have maybe a source for asay being deichalis sheish by kares. We're running a little over here. Amar Rav Shimi bar Ashi, he says you're right. If that brisa was talking about asay deichalis asay, then you'd have a raya. Says Rav Shimi bar Ashi, Hai Tana loy mishum da'asi asay v'deichalis asay. That has nothing to do with asay being deichalis asay. Really, loylam asay is not deichalis asay sheish by kares, and you would have no right to assume that. And you still have to figure out what's going on by us, by Yevamos, why I need a pasuk. Ella, what's going on in the brisa? It's a kal v'chomer. Ella mishum demaisi mikal v'chomer. What's the kal v'chomer? Meaning to say, the back and forth that Rabbi Shmuel was saying, should we do sreif on Shabbos? Should we not do sreif on Shabbos? Had nothing to do with whether we'll say asay dechalos say or not. But rather he had a different argument why we might think to do it, meaning there's a kal v'chomer. V'hochikomer, and this is the back and forth. Ma ani mekayim mechalaleha mos yumas. When it says in the Torah, don't break Shabbos, and if you do, you're chayiv misa, what does that mean? B'shar melachos chutz mi misas bezdin, it's referring to all other melachos except for meting out sreif on Shabbos. Abba misas bezdin dachye Shabbos mi kal v'chomer, but misas Shabbos is docha Shabbos. Why? It's a kal v'chomer, and what is the kal v'chomer? As we flip over to Zion, it's not so difficult to understand the kal v'chomer. I'll explain it nice and easy, and then we'll hold for the day. Uma avoda, meaning bringing karbanos on Shabbos. We know shehi chamura, It's a very chashuv thing. V'docha Shabbos, but we know that on Shabbos, carbon tzibur is docha Shabbos. So you see that doing carbon Beis Hamikdash is docha Shabbos. On Shabbos, you bring karbanos, carbon tamid, carbon musaf, ritzicha, murder, docha osa, and we know that if someone is chayiv misa, we met out that punishment, even if he's in the middle of doing the avodah. Let's say you have a kohen who is the subject of a trial, and it comes out that he's chayiv misa, and he's standing up there in the Beis Hamikdash. He's walking the animal to the Beis Hamikdash, to the altar, and we say, oh, he's chayiv misa. We just figured it out best. Then two Adam came and said he's chayiv misa. We don't tell him, oh, just go ahead and finish your avodah. We grab him, we pull him, we take him into Bezdin, and we shove the lead down his mouth. Why do we do that? Because we have to met out this punishment, even though he's in the middle of doing the avodah. So you see that killing someone for the purpose of kindness mitzvah, we do that even if he's in the middle of the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. And avodah in the Beis Hamikdash is something that is docha Shabbos. A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. That must mean that I might have a havamina. That's the kal v'chomer. That obviously meting out the punishment of Sreifa is something that should be docha Shabbos. That's the kal v'chomer shenemar. Now where do we see that a person is? We mete out the punishment to someone even if he's in the middle of doing the avodah. It's a pasuk that's learned down in Shmos. Me'im mizbechi tikachenu lamaves. Whatever the drasha is. So says the Gemara, I might think Shabbos shenidches mipnei avodah einoi din shnei tzicha docha isa. Obviously, I would say that that's going to work as well. And then the Gemara says, okay, we'll pause here because the next line of the Gemara sort of moves into the next phase. It's really, every one of these Gemaras is really in the mamish in the middle, but this is a good point. We have this kal v'chomer. We're going to now have to go back and explain exactly, well, what was Rabbi Shmuel going back and forth? He says, maybe you'll say it this way, maybe, if the kal v'chomer is a strong kal v'chomer, say the kal v'chomer. So what's the two sides? Okay, so we'll get to that tomorrow. It's a Shem, but,
The impact in the